Something a little different for the channel today. As you can see from the thumbnail, I have an array of security cameras here at my desk. So why am I reviewing home security products? Well, to be honest, I wanted to buy some CCTV for home use. I just installed some of the Eufy products at a neighbouring farms. He's an older gentleman and isn't so tech savvy as perhaps myself, and I was happy to go around and help him install them. And I was really impressed with the whole system, how easy it was to set up, the quality of the video, and the fact that it's subscription free. And I actually went onto the Eufy website and priced up a set of 4 cameras for myself, one for each side of the building. I live on a farm as well. I'm in a semi-barn conversion. It's a bit complicated to explain, but part of it's a house, part of it isn't, but the whole building is very large. And so you would need a camera, to cover each side of it. So I priced this all up and it come to about £1,000 or something like that. And I thought, I need to just sit on this for a little while because I haven't got a spare grand kicking about. Anyway, by pure coincidence, about 2 weeks later, I got an email from Eufy's marketing department saying we're running a promotion in the UK. Would you like one of our, now what did they say? It was the S340 cameras for review. How much do you charge for your videos, blah, blah, blah. And this particular camera is a dual lens camera. So it's got one sort of further and wider and one closer in and zoomed in. You can view both images at the same time. In fact, there is a screenshot on the box there. It may or may not come out. You can literally do like a picture in picture, half in half. So very detailed. It's also fully motorized and it has automatic people tracking, so to speak. So when someone comes into view, it will track them like the entire time they're in the view of the camera. In addition to that, it's got a LED floodlight, it's got night vision, it's got two-way communication. All of the cameras here have got two-way communication. This is the only motorized one and the only dual lens one. But I was like, yeah, all right, that looks really interesting. The thing is, one camera is no use to me because of the way my building is. I said, I'm not worried about being paid for my reviews. I never charge money for a review. I said, all I ask for is, a sample product. But if you want to send me 4 cameras, because then it will make the video, purposeful and interesting because I can actually put them to good use, then that would be really good. I said, if that's within your budget. And they got back to me and said, yeah, Carl, that's no problem at all. We'll send you over one of these, the motorized SoloCam S340 with the dual lens setup. These are all solar powered, by the way. So this one actually comes with a separate solar panel. I haven't peeled that off yet. I thought I'd just leave it on to show you what it looks like when it arrives. And this can be mounted directly to the top of the camera if it's going to be mounted on your property somewhere where it will get sunlight. If it's not, it comes with, I think it's a 10 metre or 5 metre extension, obviously I haven't done it yet, extension cable to allow you to mount this round the corner on an appropriate side of your building where it does get sunlight. And that's what I'm going to have to do, because for me, this is going to be my main camera. In fact, I haven't peeled that off there either. And this will be at the front of my building. And so it will point down my driveway where people would come in. I'm actually holding it upside down because it fits like that. Yeah, where people would actually enter the property. That's where this is going to be. So if you come onto the property through the gates, or if thieves have climbed over the gates or whatever to get in, this will be the first one to catch them. It's got the brightest floodlight and it will track them. And CCTV, I can see myself going off on a tangent in this video. CCTV is an interesting one, right? Because here in the UK, capturing footage on an array of cameras after and passing it to the police after something has happened, after you've been burgled or whatever it might be, is of pretty much no use whatsoever. The police here do not have the resources or funds to go out searching for burglars, even if you've got their face captured in full, 3K, 4K, or 2K glory, depending which of these cameras you're using, right? They'll do absolutely nothing with it. I've got a story I could tell you about, but that's long, where I had something happen. It was all captured and did absolutely nothing about it. Eyewitnesses, registration numbers, everything, and they did absolutely zip. Anyway, capturing it all and handing it to police after the fact, pretty much pointless. They're never going to put your images on national television and say, Mr. Gosling's property was broken into on such and such a date. He had his sim racing rig stolen that Race at Home lent him. Like, they took it out the back door. Here's a picture of the guy that did it, you know. That is never going to happen. So what do you do with the footage? Well, basically the answer is nothing. It ain't worth jack, right? Maybe you could put it on social media, and if the thief happened to be local and well known, maybe you'd be, you know, someone will say, oh yes, that's so-and-so. And then you could go to the police and say, I've been told it's so-and-so. Would they do anything then? Probably still no, from my experience. So what's the point of all this then, Carl? Well, the point is more preventative in my mind, right? If I was breaking into someone's house and as I walk up their drive, a camera floodlight lights up, points at me and tracks every bit of my movement, I'm going to be like, oh, okay, maybe this isn't the best idea. And then if they hear my voice over the camera going, something I can help you with, maybe they're going to bugger off, right? At least it stops it happening, you know? And that's where I think security cameras come into play from an actual security point of view, rather than just, you know, nice to know when the postman's arrived, you know, when your Amazon delivery's turned up. From an actual security point of view, it's that preventative nature. Now, all of these cameras have two-way voice communication. This one has a spotlight. These two, which are the 4K S330s, also have spotlights. And this little 2K one, you have to forgive me because they've sent me obviously 3 different cameras. I can't remember all the model numbers off the top of my head. The S220 doesn't have a security light. This is the one that's going to be at the back of my property, which is only accessible if you've already come via the main entrance and then round one of the 2 sides, which is where I'll be putting these ones. So we're going to have 4K cameras at either side with spotlights, 3K pan, tilt, scan, following, human AI detection at the front, and then at the very back there'll be the lesser of the bunch, which has no light, but I have a light at the back of the house anyway, and is 2K in resolution. All of these have onboard storage. None of them need a subscription. You could literally just buy one of these, or one of these, or one of these, and set it up on your property as you see fit. I've also got an optional base station. This has 16 gig of additional storage in it, and you can link all your cameras to this rather than using your Wi-Fi network, which is what you would use if you just had these individually. Then there is, of course, an app on your phone that allows you to control all of these, to look at the footage. You get alerts come through when they're triggered. You know, you can actually move the pan and tilt option on this, and that's what allows you to give someone a little bit of a off your fuck, mate, if you see them on your property. So the whole package, I just think it's going to be really, really good. Let's give some quick prices for these. The SoloCam S340, which is what I'm going to have at the front, £179. The S220, which is the one without the light and only 2K resolution, $99.99. And then I got the package with these two and the base station. That's $4.99. You can, of course, buy these cameras individually, and you can buy a base station individually. There'll be links below if you want to go and check them all out in whatever country you happen to be in. They all come with suitable mounting hardware for whichever camera it is. That was the one that was for the S330. The S340 comes with this bracket, and these are all kind of like quick release. I keep holding that upside down, don't I? They're all kind of quick release because even though they're solar powered, should you not get enough sunshine in whatever country you're in, UK is probably a good example, you can just pop it off, take it indoors, plug in one of the supplied USB-C cables and charge it up. And I believe the charge lasts a good, 3 to 6 months depending on usage anyway. But with solar panels on the top of each camera, and in this case separate, if they're positioned correctly, I think even here in the UK, charging is going to be few and far between. The base station, of course, comes with a suitable power supply and a network cable if you wanted to sit it beside your router. This actually can also be used as a Wi-Fi extender, which is something I might have to do myself. What have we got on here? Power, a couple of USBs and the network port, and then the sync button on the top. All of these have a sync button because from previous experience installing some of these the other week for my neighbour, you press and hold the sync button and then you point the camera at a QR code that the app gives you on the screen of your phone to link it up. And then you name it, call it whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, for me, because of the size of this building, I don't think my Wi-Fi is going to reach to the front where this camera needs to go. So I think I'm actually going to have to put my base station kind of halfway through the workshop part of this building. So in between my router and where this camera is going to go, and use it as a Wi-Fi extender. Or what I might try initially, for simplicity as well, is having this kind of halfway between all the cameras. Again, it'll be in the workshop part of the building, and hopefully this will have enough range to hook them all up to that. That way I haven't got to have some on the Wi-Fi, some on the Homebase. But we'll see, because, you know, range is range. It'll either go as far as it will or it won't. You know, they don't have external aerials or anything, so we shall see. They're going to be reasonably high up, so the Wi-Fi signal should be relatively uninterrupted, but we shall see. So that's the different models we've got. The cheapest one at £99, the S220, that's 2K of resolution. The 3K pan and tilt with tracking for 179, I think I said that was 79, yeah. And then this package with two S330s and a base station at £500. This has expandable storage as well. You can stick an SD card, I think it is, in there should you want more than 16 gig. And as I say, these are all subscription free. You can, however, subscribe. They do subscriptions from as little as £2.59 a month right up to £80 a month, depending how many devices you want cloud storage for. And I think there's a few other limitations to being offline as well. I think some of the, oh no, I was about to say some of the AI features don't work, but that's not true. That's if you don't have the Homebase, some of the AI features for some of the cameras don't work. And I hate the phrase AI, it isn't AI, it's just an algorithm that's been programmed to tell the difference between a car, a person, and a cat. Nothing artificial intelligence about it. It's just a load of variable lookup tables. Does it, you know, does it look like a cat, or does it look like a car or a person? Anyway, enough waffle. That's what I've got here today. I'm going to get these all charged up, then I'm going to install them around various locations on the property, get everything set up and working. I'll show you, some footage of them installed in their locations, and then I'll show you some daytime footage so you can see what the quality of the imagery is like during the day, and then we'll do some nighttime footage again so you can see what it's like during the night. The only thing that won't be easy for me to show you is the audio quality that comes out of these. I can put my, well no, because how am I going to do that? I don't know. I'll figure something out, but I can always tell you whether the audio quality is any good or not. I was just thinking if I've got to speak through my phone, like I'll have to be nowhere near the camera, otherwise we'll get feedback. And then I need some sort of recording device dangled in front of the speaker on the camera to capture the audio, but I don't have random spare recording devices that are completely wireless. But I'll try and figure something out. Otherwise, I will just report back to you how good the audio is. And as I say, the ones I installed for my neighbours on his farm the other day, the audio quality was surprisingly loud and clear for such small speakers. Anyway, I think I've covered and waffled pretty much everything. We've been through the specs, we've been through the prices, we've been through how they're powered, we've been through how the Homebase functionality works. Everyone has internal storage, they're all subscription free, they can all run independently, how I'm going to install them. So yeah, I'll get them charged up, I'll get them installed, and I'll come back in the later part of this video with all the useful information as to whether they're actually any good or not. Well, it's been a very interesting few days. This is the first modern CCTV system that I've installed. So I don't have a modern point of reference to compare these two. So for all I know, my experience with these is a really good experience. It could also be a really bad experience. As I say, I've not installed any other modern setups to compare. So I'll just give you my experience, what I consider to be good and bad. Oh, and one thing to mention, in the earlier part of the video, I speculated the Homebase uses a micro SD card for storage. It actually doesn't. It has a 2.5-inch drive slot. So either a mechanical style laptop drive like this you could put in there, or an SSD for additional storage. There's actually space for two. There's only one active slot with pins that you would slot into, pins with a socket you would slot into, but there is space beside it for a second one. So if you had so much footage that your drive got full, you could take it out, put the spare one in, and then take that one away into a caddy, plug it into your computer and go through the footage if you needed to. I mean, that would be a lot of footage. Anyway, I've got some notes here to go through because there's quite a lot to talk about. I've got lots of clips to show you because obviously there's 3 different types of camera here. So we need to do daytime and nighttime footage for each camera, demonstrate the tracking features of the S340 and show the S340 and the S330 spotlight functions versus their night vision. So that's what we're going to do right now. And then I'll talk about what I think about it and the functionality and blah, blah, blah. In fact, actually, before we do that, I'll just say, chair was a bit low. I'll just say how easy it was to install the cameras. In fact, I've got some footage that I took of each camera being mounted. So let's go for the driveway camera, which is the S340 first of all, and I'll put the footage of that up now. So here's the one at the front of the building, and what I've had to do here because of the orientation of the property is put the solar panel just on this adjacent face, because that will get sunlight first thing in the morning, you know, up until sort of getting towards lunchtime depending on the time of year. But that's you know, one of the best things about this, because it has got the external solar panel. Even without using the extension, I was able to just put it facing in the direction it needs to face. And they're all super easy, to be honest. You know, they come with the screws, some rawl plugs and the brackets, and you can just screw them in. Everything is plastic, and part of me sort of thinks, oh, I wonder how that's going to stand up to UV over, you know, months and potentially years of use. But I guess only time will tell. So that's the S340. S330, I've got 2 of those, but I'll just show you where I mounted one of them now. Then we've got this one up here, which is covering sort of the front door of the property, so to speak. And the angle you see it at on its mount there isn't the most acute angle it can do. It can go closer to the wall of the property, but there's no need, because the angle of the lens, as you'll see from some of the footage, picks up plenty from that mounted angle there. And if you went any more sort of closer to the wall, you'd just be seeing lots of wall in the image in your video rather than your actual sort of the area you want to monitor. And then of course lastly the S220, the cheapest of the bunch and the lowest resolution, and the one without the spotlight, I used to mount out the back of the property, as potential intruders would have to go past the first 2 cameras before they got to the back anyway. So let's have a look at how I mounted that one. And then finally this one, as you can see, I've got mounted to some sort of large pieces of wood. The fixing for this sort of ball and socket doesn't allow for a huge amount of adjustment, so that's what I had to do to get it to point exactly where I want. But this is the benefit of wireless. You can literally just put it anywhere as long as it's in range of the Homebase or your Wi-Fi signal. So yeah, ever so slightly different mounting options for all 3 cameras. The limitations of the one I used out the back is that it doesn't articulate as far as the S330s, and of course the S340 rotates on a motor anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But that was a little limiting for that S220. Could definitely prefer the other mounting option. So but they all installed, let's say, really easy. So that's all installed. I had no problem connecting them to the app on my phone. Again, before I show you the footage of each one, the app itself has a huge amount of functionality, far more than I could demonstrate in this video. It would take ages. But let's just say, I don't think they've missed anything. The automation, perhaps a little more in-depth automation might be nice. And speaking of automation, it's supposed to work with Amazon Alexa and some other smart home systems. It probably works 1 in every 10 attempts. If you try and disarm the system or arm the system, most of the time it says Homebase is not responding. And I have the most recent Amazon Echo Dot, their Gen 4 or 5, whichever one it is, the round one with the display on. And I've got 3 or 4 of those in the house as well. So it just doesn't work. You get fed up with Alexa saying, sorry, Homebase isn't responding, and you just pick up your phone, load up the app, and you do it in there. Like when I go to bed at night, for example, I want to put it in bedtime mode, which will, any of the cameras are triggered, will trigger an alarm through the Homebase. I'll show you some footage of the alarms and that a bit later. But yeah, the Alexa functionality, useless, mostly just doesn't work. And I've got, like I say, 3 or 4 different Echo Dots here to try, and they all had the same results. So nothing positive to say about that. The app itself, that mostly works. It is very complicated, and it's not the most user-friendly of applications, and some of the English isn't the best translated from, I'm guessing, whatever the native language would have been, Chinese perhaps. But you get the gist of what's going on and you can figure it out. And each of the 3 cameras has slightly different settings, and because you can go into each camera and choose your resolutions, how you want to record, how you want to stream, the nighttime functionality, spotlight on, spotlight off, tracking zones, everything. But they're all ever so slightly different for each camera, which I thought, apart from the difference in functionality, as in one has spotlight, one doesn't, you'd think it would be universal, like the section you use to set up your tracking zone or your alarm zone, your motion detection zone. But it isn't. It's all ever slightly different. And the same for like the solar sort of tracking system it has on here. It will tell you in hours and in milliamp hours of charge how much solar energy each one has accumulated. But it's all in a slightly different place for each camera within the app itself. So on one of them, it's like under battery management, I think, and then like dashboard. And then another one, it's not under battery management. There's just a dashboard tab. So you're kind of like, oh, where is it on this one? But it's like I say, it's all there. There's a lot. It's complicated when you've got multiple cameras that are different models. If they're all the same model, then that wouldn't be the case, but they're not. So a little bit messy, lots of configuration and customization options, but it did all work okay. So yeah, physically installation was good, software installation wise, also good. Just quite a lot to take in with the various different models. Anyway, now let's have a look at some footage from each camera. We'll start with what I call my driveway camera, and we'll do a bit of daytime footage. It's just me obviously walking across the driveway, giving a little wave, and you can see how it tracks me really well. The tracking does work really well. I have no issue with the tracking whatsoever. So that was a daytime one. Then we'll go to a night vision. Well, the night vision extends quite some distance. You can see I'm a little overexposed though, so it's very difficult. You couldn't really identify a person from this unless you knew who the person was, I would say. Anyway, again, tracking works well though, no issues there. And I'm holding a torch, some of you might notice, but I'm not pointing it at the camera, so that's not affecting the way the night vision shows, as you'll see from some other footage when I haven't got a torch in my hand. So, and then we'll look at the spotlight version. So this is nighttime, but using the inbuilt spotlight. I think I actually prefer this because you can make out more detail, like in my clothing, the colours of the clothing and my trainers and my socks and my shorts and my t-shirt. Obviously in night vision, you can't see colours, so you do lose some detail there. But the tracking works well in both night and day, both with the spotlight on and off. So that's really good. It also tracks vehicles. Vehicles and pets are beta, but you can enable it. So here's some footage of a DPD driver arriving. You can see where it first started him. He'd already come a fair way down the drive actually, but it tracks him, it pans round, you know, no problem whatsoever. And because there's not much changing there, the image quality looks really good. And we'll talk about image quality in a moment once I've shown you all of the cameras at night time and at daytime. And then here's another one of a car just, you know, reversing out and off. And again, this one shows how well the camera tracks the vehicle as it's moving around the front of the farmyard there and makes its way off out of the driveway. So again, the tracking features do work really well on that S340. No issues with that whatsoever, quite impressive. So that's the S340. Now we'll take a look at the S330, which is the 4K camera, but without tracking. So this also has a spotlight and an alarm built in. So let's have a look at that one. We'll go daytime first of all. Me just strolling off into the distance. What I don't like about these cameras is that you can see the bald spot on the top of my head. Not something I like to be reminded of, but as a middle-aged man, that's just what we have to deal with. But yeah, no issues, you know, picked me up perfectly well. As I walked past it, it triggered. Then we'll go night vision. Now I would say, oh actually this is an interesting point. That clip is really short. The reason that clip is really short is because one of the issues I'll get onto later about how late it triggers from motion detection. If I show you the clip, this is the first frame of the clip. I've walked in quite some distance and we'll get to that in a minute, but I'll just sort of play the clip a couple of times. You can see it's not as overexposed as what the S340 was with night vision. Now let's take a quick peek at the same camera but with the spotlight on. Again, I think this is probably my preferred mode, although the range of the spotlight on this one isn't as good as the S340. Definitely not. But, you know, the fact that you can see colours and a bit more detail, I think is probably my preference. And then finally, we'll look at the S220, and which you want to go out the back. That doesn't have a spotlight, but it does have night vision, and it's the 2K resolution camera. So, where have I got that? This one here. Just some footage of me. I've been putting the ladder away that I've been using to install the cameras with. So again, there's still plenty of detail in this image. Now, depending on what you're watching my video on, whether it's a 70-inch TV or your mobile phone, you're instantly going to have two very different opinions about the image quality of these cameras. And we'll have a quick look at the nighttime as well. Because if you're watching this on a big screen or anything bigger than a mobile phone, you are instantly going to notice, if you're familiar with it, compression and artifacts and a lack of detail as a result. So yeah, that was the S220 at night time. Again, that one doesn't have a spotlight, so we can't do that. So, image quality. You've seen it all for yourselves, daytime, nighttime, with night vision and using a spotlight. In my opinion, these images, the quality of video is too compressed. The file sizes are absolutely tiny. Oh, how many files did I just show you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've shown you 10 so far. There's 2 more files I've got, so 12 in total. The total file size for all 12 video clips, bearing in mind 4K for 3 of them, 3K for 3 of them, and 2K for 3 of them, for 2 of them, was 50 megabytes. That's absolutely tiny. That's the equivalent to like 3 MP3s at 320 kilobits. So 3 good quality MP3s, like 6-7 minute tracks, would be maybe 50 meg. That is absolutely tiny for high resolution video footage. And that's why it looks so bitty, artifacty, and compression. If you're not familiar with what compression, that's why it looks messy. And if you shrink it down and look at it, you know, on a phone screen, it doesn't look too bad. But if you zoom in on the phone screen, or you're watching it on a monitor like I've got here, or a larger screen, you're going to notice that lack of quality and that loss of detail. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, having the footage post-burglary, probably not going to do you much use here in the UK anyway. As I say, I think it's going to be more of a preventative tool than anything. But I don't see any reason for them to compress the images that small, especially when you've got unlimited storage using the Homebase. Maybe if you're using on-camera storage only, then fair play, all right? You know, I don't know what the individual storage on each camera is actually, but if it's small enough that you need to have things so highly compressed, all right, fair play. But at least when it's connected to a Homebase that has pretty much unlimited storage, give us the option to use much less compression and retain the information and the quality. It does actually on the S330 cameras. They give you the option to record at 1080p using the H.264 codec, which is a much higher quality codec. But then you're going from 4K down to 1080p. You're losing 4 times the detail. And I did try that out, and it made it harder to read a number plate of a vehicle parked by my gate, my pedestrian entrance there. So 4K is definitely the way to go, even though it's more compressed, because to be honest, even the 1080p stuff still looked compressed. It's just not, you wouldn't use a 1080p. It's not an option really. That's why I haven't bothered showing it to you. You'd use the 4K option. But yeah, I'm not impressed with the quality of the video. And obviously when you're streaming it live to your phone, it's compressed equally so. The whole system is useful for monitoring your property, as in you get an alert when someone turns up, great. And if someone arrives in the night to try and break in, you're going to get an alert, and a siren will sound through your Homebase and on the camera that's been triggered as well. And I'll show you some footage of that in a second. But I'm not impressed with the quality of the video at all. So let's have a quick look at the alarms going off. I'll show you some video footage of one of the cameras with its alarm triggering, because I don't think having the light flash on and off, as you'll see here, is a benefit, because now 50% of the time you can't see the subject because the light goes off, on, off, on. Yes, it's kind of cool, but I don't think it's useful. What's happening that you can't hear right now is there's a siren going off. They actually mute the microphone on the camera when the siren's going off. So it's not on part of the recording. Don't know what the purpose of that is. But yeah, I don't find the flashing light useful. Let me now show you that from me recording it from standing on the ground, because you saw me holding my mobile phone. So you'll see what it looks like stood on the ground, and you'll hear the siren as well. So let's have a quick peek at that. Obviously the start, this is pitch black until I walk into view. There we go, and it's picked me up. And now the siren is going off and the light is flashing. It's reasonably loud, and if you were on like a housing estate or road with other properties, then it would certainly, you know, bounce around the other properties. It would be loud. Me on a big open farm, it was still reasonably loud, but it's never going to scare anybody away. And as I say, the flashing light, I think whilst it's a cool function, it's not something I'm using. I've turned that function off. And then the other camera that does this is the S330, has a similar function. I have a video clip of that also. Let's get that. Now again, starts pitch black until it notices me, and same thing, flashes, albeit slower, and the siren sounds slightly different. Again, I wouldn't use the flashing light. It draws attention, but it prevents the camera recording as much useful information as it could do if the light just came on and kept on the subject, hopefully, as they legged it away. But yeah, the overall video quality I'm not impressed with. So other quality, so the audio. You've got two-way communication on all three cameras. That works just fine, but it is compressed, a bit like the video, of course. The microphone, in fact, I'll put up a clip now of me talking at one of the cameras. I think it's the one at the front, so you'll hear what the microphone quality sounds like. Yeah, let's do that now. So here's the one at the front of the building, and what I've had to do here because of the... Yeah, so not bad at all, really. You can hear quite plainly what people are saying if they're speaking, you know, within a reasonable distance of the camera. The speaker in the cameras, they all sound the same to me. I would say they are a cross between like a good mobile phone speaker and maybe a laptop speaker. That's the sort of quality you're getting. Mid-range, obviously no bass, and reasonable clarity at the top end. It's functional. You can have a two-way conversation, you know, with a postman or an intruder if you wanted to. So that definitely works. What next? Batteries. Obviously these are solar powered. So they've been running for 4 days now, and 3 out of the 4 cameras are at 100%. We've had one day that was sunny. It is late in the year here. It's October, so the sun goes down quite early. And when it comes up, it stays reasonably low in the sky. So all of them, apart from the S220, which is the cheapest and smallest one of the bunch, are still at 100%. They dropped to 97, and then the solar charging will kick in if sunshine is available. The smallest one, the S220, is at 95%, and today it's sunny. So when I last looked, it is charging. It shows you that on the app. Just like on your, you've got like, I'll just show you this one sort of home page. It loads up and you've got all your cameras on there, and then in detail on each one you can see the battery usage, the Wi-Fi signal strength, and whether they're charging or not, and also the number of triggers that have occurred since you last looked. So yeah, that was charging earlier on. The sun's actually, well, it's still out, so that should still be charging. So yeah, I'm quite optimistic about the battery life. I mean, if you're somewhere where it gets like 40, 50 triggers a day, then maybe it'll wear it down faster. But for me, where not a lot changes here on this property day to day, a couple of us going in and out, I think I'm going to have no issues with the batteries lasting and the solar keeping it topped up from the small 4-day sample that I can, speak about now. So that's, looking positive. So we've been through image quality, been through audio quality and microphone quality and the battery. Now let's talk about the actual motion detection itself, because this, as you see in one of those clips earlier, is not what I would call the best. That clip I showed you where I was walking through the pedestrian gate, it didn't trigger until I was almost below the camera. Now the reason for this is because they all use PIR sensitive, passive infrared, to detect the movement. And it says in the installation guides that you want to set your cameras up so that potential triggers will walk past the sensor and not directly at the sensor. And if you walk directly at the sensor, which is what was happening in that clip earlier of me, it may not trigger until very late. This is the nature of how the PIR sensors work. My first thought was, why are they using PIR sensors only and not comparing frame data from the captured video? And then of course I realized instantly it's because they're not capturing any video at all until a PIR is triggered, or until you trigger a live stream from your phone to save battery. If this was a wired system, the cameras would be live the entire time, and the Homebase perhaps, or whatever digital video recording device you were using, could constantly analyze the video footage for frame changes. So compare one frame to the next frame, to the next frame, to the next frame. And when you walk into the frame data obviously changes because the image has changed, and you can trigger motion based on that. That is how the last CCTV that I set up for myself, which was wired, worked, because it had constant power to each camera. Didn't have to worry about saving battery. So one of the compromises with this completely wireless system is you do not have the best motion triggering or yeah, triggering, I was going to say, or tracking. The tracking works fine once it's come alive. It's the triggering. So it gets things quite late. One of the other things, you may have noticed this in some of the clips, you might not have, is that it cuts recordings short. One of the footage I put up, if I haven't, I might put it up now. Yeah, I think I already have. But I'm videoing the camera and talking, and I'm still stood there in front of it, and it just stops recording. And this happens a lot. And I've got the option set to optimal surveillance up to 60 seconds. The idea of this is it records each clip up to 60 seconds as much as it can of what's going on. If you don't have it set to that and you have it set to optimal battery, it will record even less. But even set to optimal surveillance, it's cutting the recording short. It happens when there's vehicles driving in, it happens when there's people going back and forth. You'll get a little bit, it might be 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and then it just stops. And all the cameras do this. I don't know whether it's because the PIR, they're still using that, presumably, for motion. So the sort of trigger window is set really small, again, for battery saving. And so it's like, oh no, it thinks the motion stopped, so it stops recording. It will then trigger again if you continue to move around, but you've missed however much, you know, a few 5 seconds or so, possibly 10 of recording. And when I've got it set to optimal surveillance, it should start recording and keep recording, you know, while something's going on. But again, it's not comparing frame data, even at the time of recording, I don't think, or it wouldn't cut off. I think it's using the PIR. So I'm getting very late triggers, very short clips, missing, you know, parts of the event that's going on. And then on top of that, we're getting completely missed events. Even with things like vans coming in and out, I've driven past in my transit van and it hasn't triggered. I and other people have walked past, and this goes for all the cameras, and walked past, you know, on the ground as people, not driving past in vehicles, and it hasn't triggered. And this probably happens once in every, I don't know, I would say 7 out of 10 times it triggers with a vehicle and with a person, but perhaps 3 out of 10 times it doesn't, and you've just walked straight past. Maybe again this is a PIR limitation, I'm not sure, but it is irritating. You know, a lot of the time you're missing bits of clips, it's triggering late. It's not catching things at all, even large objects like transit vans driving past. But again, I think it's, you know, a limitation of the PIR, as I say. But, you know, nonetheless, it's still irritating. Now, speaking of irritations or actual issues, there are a few issues. The app, when you go there and you try to live stream any of the cameras, obviously I have 4 of them set up, a lot of the time, and I would say 60% perhaps of the time, it just fails to start streaming. It will say establishing secure connection, and then it won't, or it will establish a secure connection, it will say preparing to play, and it just won't. It will sit there and then it will give you an error saying it failed. And this happens on all the cameras, so it isn't a problem with an individual camera, and it's potentially either the application on the phone itself, which is Android, it's a Sony phone, or it's a problem with the Homebase because they're all streaming through the Homebase. But that is irritating. So I just want to check on that. You know, I've been showing people, oh, I've got this new CCTV system set up, and at my house this is, so on the same Wi-Fi network that everything else is on, and it's sitting there and it's like, oh yeah, it's not loaded. You know, sat there with a missus, oh yeah, like, and just no, and it's like, exit the app, shut the app down, start the app up again, go through each camera, oh yeah, there we go, now it's streaming. That's a ball ache, and it shouldn't really be like that. As I said, I don't know if it's Android, maybe iOS is more reliable, I'm not sure, but that is irritating. What else is irritating is the Homebase will just go offline every now and then. It happened like 4 or 5 times yesterday. Again, I only noticed because I went to do something and I loaded the Eufy app up, and it's like every camera offline, offline, offline. I'm like, what? And then it says Homebase offline at the bottom. I'm like, oh, okay. And I went and looked at the Homebase, the little light is lit up red instead of blue. And it's not because it's lacking Wi-Fi connectivity. It has full strength reception according to the app where the Homebase is. All the cameras have full strength apart from the one that does the driveway. That's got, what, 1 bar less. So they've all got a great connection. They do connect to the Homebase and not to my Wi-Fi. I thought when installing a new camera you could choose Wi-Fi or Homebase, but with these it only gave me the option to connect it to the Homebase once I'd told the app I had a Homebase. But yeah, they've all got good connection to the Homebase and the Homebase to my Wi-Fi, so I don't know why these streaming problems arise. And the same thing happens when I go to view a recorded event that's happened, and that is streaming again from the Homebase. It will say decrypting and it will start to play. Sometimes it will play all of it, sometimes it will play a little bit of it and it will hang, sometimes it will just sit on decrypting. So there's definitely, I'm going to say it's probably software issue there that just, it's really irritating when you want to do it and it's like, oh, but is it going to work? You know, when you got to show someone something and it's like, I really hope it works, and then it doesn't, and there's the embarrassment of going, well, security system was all right, but half the time you can't actually stream your cameras, and maybe it's because I dropped my phone, who knows. I've got soft carpet, it's fine. But yeah, that's irritating. As I say, Homebase going offline, again, I don't know why that is. Wi-Fi connection's good. The Homebase range is pretty decent, but if you've got a very large property, you might struggle. For me, I had to put the Homebase sat by a window on the adjacent wall to where that front driveway camera is mounted, and literally right on the windowsill. Otherwise it wouldn't get a reliable connection, and it's got to connect to all 4 cameras as well, you remember, because for whatever reason it won't. Like I say, I'm sure when I did my neighbours, when I installed a new camera one at a time, I got to choose, would you like it on the Wi-Fi network or would you like it on the Homebase? So I was assuming, for me, that my furthest away camera, the driveway one, I would use a Wi-Fi repeater and connect it to my Wi-Fi, because I was confident that the Homebase probably wouldn't reach that far. And if I hadn't put it in this stupid position on my windowsill, which now means I've got a cable running from the windowsill along the wall into a socket. I don't know how I'm going to neaten that up. I'm going to have to try because it irritates me. I wouldn't have been able to use the 4th camera. There really would have been, I've perhaps been able to do some research and find a way around it, but there was nothing obvious because you couldn't use it over the Wi-Fi. Now, I mentioned you can use the Homebase as a Wi-Fi repeater, so perhaps if I had started installing this all from the beginning and chose Wi-Fi for the camera installation, I would then have had the option to use a Homebase as a Wi-Fi repeater, and then all the cameras would be connected to my Wi-Fi, and I could have put the Homebase in between my router and the furthest away camera. But I haven't had to experiment with that because I did find a location on that windowsill where it does work. So that's okay. But yeah, that's my experience with this whole Eufy home security setup with these 4 different cameras, the S340, the S330 and the S220. I actually remember the model numbers, kind of. It's a mixed bag. Easy to install physically, easy to install software-wise. When they work, they trigger well, and yes, you'll know when the postman arrives. Yes, if it's night time, an intruder will trigger it. Even if they're walking directly at the PIR and it takes a bit longer to trigger than I'd like, it will still trigger. And the Homebase siren will go off, and the siren on the cameras will go off, and I'll be able to verbally communicate with that intruder and let them know that they should really, make a sharp exit, because I live on a farm and farmers have guns. So that's kind of, it will do what I need it to do. But if you want it for high quality video recording of what's going on your property, it doesn't do that. The quality for video is very poor. It may be average, it may be good, it may be excellent for wireless CCTV. I don't have anything to compare it to. But from a just generic video quality, if we're comparing it to a video I'm recording for you guys, or a film I'm watching, or something you're streaming on Netflix, it's terrible. In fact, if there are any other CCTV manufacturers watching and and you're sitting there going, well, our system's way better than that, Carl, feel free to drop me an email and get your system sent over, because I've really enjoyed playing with these. I love technology and gadgets, and these are technological gadgets. So yeah, by all means get in touch, because it would be cool to compare some others as well. But anyway, I thought my regular viewer base, I know it's mostly a sim racing VR channel, but home security is a big deal these days. It's technology. I thought you might value my opinion on it. So hopefully some of you have found this useful and informative. They'll be linked in the description if you decide this is something you fancy, either to the Eufy website or to Amazon, whichever I deem appropriate when I have a look in a bit. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.